back. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis hanging out with you on this Wednesday. All right, so Gunner, Jalen Reagor waived by the Vikings.
No.
So we talked about this, I guess, Monday. I actually talked about it the last 2 days. So we had heard that, they were trying to drum up some trade interest, and we're saying to ourselves, and the justification was, well, everybody needs a returner. First of all, he's not a good returner on top of everything else. He doesn't secure the football well. It was clearly a desperate ploy by the Vikings to try to get somebody interested. Give us a 7th rounder. Give us whatever you want, and we'll take it.
Yep.
But, not the case. And he's cut. Boy, this has been a short and sweet fall here for this guy.
It's good. It reminds me a lot of Nelson Aguilar. It really does. And look at what has happened to Aguilar since he's left the Eagles and how he's bounced around from team to team. And I see this happening to Jalen Reagor. He will have a value as a 3rd, 4th, or 5th receiver for somebody out there for at least a few years. But I don't think he's going to be I don't think his destinations will have long-term futures in them from this point on. All right, so, Howie Roseman identified they made a mistake, got rid of him, ships him off to Minnesota. He's a one-hit wonder in Minnesota, not even a hit. One-year wonder in Minnesota. Somebody's going to pick him up. Once teams start to sort out all this, what they need, what they don't need, somebody's going to pick him up. Yeah. But how he was evaluated as a 1st-round pick. Now, the Eagles selected him, but a lot of the experts, projected him as a 1st-round pick. Now, I don't know how the Eagles saw him as a better 1st-round pick than Justin Jefferson, but you know what? Every team makes mistakes. This one is glaring.
I thought this was interesting, and maybe we'll try and get him on tomorrow. But Brandon Lee Gouton of Bleeding Green Nation, he tweeted this out a little bit earlier, which I thought was interesting. He did an evaluation on him. And again, this is what this is what some of the people around the league were saying. So he tweeted out, doing some BGN Bleeding Green Nation draft prep, and found myself rereading what we wrote. This is from Bleeding Green Nation, what we wrote right after the Eagles selected Reagor. All right, so just take a listen to this is what they wrote at Bleeding Green Nation. Some people were high on him, obviously. So they started off saying, at the same time, Reagor is not without considerable downside. Drops have been an issue. His 4.47 40-yard dash at the combine was slower than expected. Former NFL executives like Daniel Jeremiah and Gil Brandt don't even have him ranked in their top 50 prospects. Quote, his 2019 tape does raise some concerns, even when taking into account the abysmal quarterback play. Reagor didn't seem committed to selling decoy routes, blocking or squeezing every yard out of his opportunities after the catch. That last concern comes up in analytics. His yards after catch average dropped considerably the last 3 years. He went from 7.8 to 5.9 to 3.8 the last year in college. He only broke a total of 5 tackles in 19. You can explain some of that away by the arguing poor ball placement, but too many times Reagor was in self-preservation mode and sought out the sidelines.
Ouch.
Okay,
that's hard.
That is not glowing, and you know what? A lot of it is exactly what we've seen from him.
Wow, and that's exactly what Minnesota saw. We were just talking about it yesterday and how he stopped on routes.
Yep.
And one was a deep pass in the game. It could have been a touchdown. He stops and he looks around like this. The ball's bouncing in the end zone.
And Kirk Cousins is just like, come on, dude.
And he gets to the sideline and the coaches are yelling at him.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? I don't know where his head is at. Is he a guy who just a natural talent, just ascended up the ranks, high school and college, and thought he could do that in the NFL? And he gets 1st-round pick. Why shouldn't he think anywhere else? He got 1st-round money. And now he's finding out the harsh reality. Your long-term futures in the NFL is day to day now, buddy.
Yeah.
So you got to pick it up.
The other thing that really surprised me about him is he's a player and coach's son. You would think that this guy would understand all the intricacies of playing the position. I know his dad was a defensive player, but still, like, he clearly doesn't understand route running. Like, it just I think your observation's dead on. Like, he got by on great talent.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. All right. So if you look at that draft class, Derek, we know the Eagles took him, 21, and then Justin Jefferson goes 22, and forever that's going to be, Here's some of the guys who went after him. Kenneth Murray, linebacker for the Chargers. Cesar Ruiz has turned into a good center for the Saints.
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk, receiver from the Niners. Jordan Love, who's now the starter for the Packers.
Yeah.
Jordan Brooks, who's a tackle machine for Seattle.
Yep.
Patrick Queen hasn't really worked out, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
And he's faded, come to think of it.
He's kind of faded a little bit. You're right. T. Higgins, really good receiver in Cincinnati. Michael Pittman, who by default is their number one, but he's solid player.
You know what? I think we don't really know what Michael Pittman is because of the situation. Look who he's had throwing him the ball.
That's very true.
Carson Wentz, and now he's got a rookie.
Yeah, and Matt Ryan, who was probably at the end of the line. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. DeAndre Swift went after him. Jonathan Taylor went after him. And Antoine Wingfield went after him. Trayvon Diggs went after him. How about at 53, Jalen Hurts?
Oh, jeez. Oh, my goodness.
Josh Uche, who's a double-digit sack guy for the Patriots. J.K. Dobbins. Again, I'm not going to run through this whole thing, but you get the idea, man. Like, this is that's a tough one. Now, the Eagles pivoted off of it great. They did. Next year, they take Devontae Smith. They didn't hang on to him and force feed him, more than 2 years, trying to justify where they took him. I give them a lot of props for that. The Eagles are very good and have become very good, Derek, at sort of admitting mistakes and moving on and not, doubling down on these kind of things.
Well, in years past, Howie held on to certain players too long. But it goes back to what he told us over the last couple of years about learning valuable lessons about not always being the smartest guy in the room, listening to more people on the outside, especially his boss, Jeffrey Lurie. Yeah. And more so importantly, the last couple of drafts in particular, honing in on the one conference in college football that he kept looking away from. But now if you look at his last few drafts, they have a definitive SEC flavor to them.
Yeah.
And look at the players that have come in here. They're all quality players, all championship type players. They know what it takes. And it took him, the fact, number one, that he had that tenure for a while. He gets shoved aside by a former head coach. And instead of the owner cleaning house with the coach and the GM, he gives the GM a second chance. That doesn't happen in the National Football League.
No. Everything about this is unique.
So it goes along the lines of what I've been saying about this team and about Jeffrey Lurie in particular. And they're patient. They're patient in a lot of ways that a lot of teams aren't. Patient with the Brandon Grahams. Patient with the Howie Rosemans. Even when Howie Roseman's drafts were inconsistent, the one thing that really stood out about him was he was at the forefront of the cap. Mm-hmm. He was very good. He learned his lesson well from Joe Banner, and he enhanced it.
Yep.
And I think that was one of the big reasons why Jeffrey Lurie said, you know what? I got to keep him. I got to keep this guy. But Howie, you've got to change some things.
Yep.
And Howie said, you know what? Consider I'm making a 7-figure income. I like my lifestyle. I like the team I'm working for. It's either change or get out. And boy, did he change over the last couple of seasons.
He did. And, you've seen what's really over the last 5-6 years, how many people are being plucked out of the Eagles front office. Joe Douglas is kind of the headliner, but there's tons. You look at Cleveland with Andrew Berry, right. Pittsburgh. We could go on and on and on. I mean, and that's the other thing, it's hard to lose coaches off of your staff. It's hard to lose front office people and keep this thing rolling. So, that's another area you give the Eagles credit for. But I agree. There was like a philosophical switch. And when we had Howie on the show, he talked about it, where he had enough people in his ear. And Howie went to Florida. It's not like he's not familiar with the SEC, but he had enough people in his ear saying, look, man, these are the best players in the country from this conference. Like, start digging into this group. And they smartly have. Just took too long.
Well, it took longer. If you're willing to make changes, I guess you could say it's never too long. And we don't know what this team could have looked like had he made these changes sooner after that 2017 season. Who knows? It could have been back to another Super Bowl before going back this past season.
Yep.
But the bottom line is he learned a lesson, a very valuable lesson. And now people put him at the forefront. I mean, there was a point when I hate to say this, people might have considered him like one of the laughing stocks in the league, the way they drafted and stuff. Now he's at the forefront. He's in the conversation every year, executive of the year, and rightfully so for what he's done, not just with the drafting, but how strategic he's been in maneuvering the cap and bringing in certain free agents, not just wow factor free agents, but free agents that can really help this team. The only one that was a bust was Robert Quinn.
Right.
Plain and simple over the last couple of years.
You know, and here's the thing. Yeah, Quinn didn't work out, but I would rather they be aggressive. They err on the side of aggression.
Yes.
You know, with in-season moves, Sue and you know, and
Linval
Quinn.
Joseph.
Linval Joseph. I would much rather they do that than just, let's just kind of hope this guy steps up. You know, they're willing to be the aggressor where a lot of times teams aren't. And now you're able to do that in part because of the way you situate yourself with cap space and whatnot. I mean, that's a big piece of this. Really is.
And that's why I said time and time again, this 53-man roster we look at right now, Howie's still wheeling and dealing. I promise you this. He's on the phone. He's talking. They're looking at charts. They're checking the waiver wires. This roster, as we see it right now, is not going to be the same roster. I predict there's going to be some changes before the first game next week.
Yeah, give me an idea. Do you have any sense of who, or you just think it's to be determined, or where are we?
They're still looking at some linebackers. They obviously still have to address the punter situation, and I guarantee you they're still going to look at some wide receivers.
Right.
You know, they only have 4 on the roster right now. You have Greg Ward as an insurance policy, but you got to be looking at some wide receivers. Teams don't go into a season with just 4 wide receivers, 5 minimum. A lot of teams with 6. So the fact that they have two potential spots of wide receiver open tells me that they're looking at something. They're waiting to see something, you know, and it may be a player who's not going to be a big name, but he's going to fit this Nick Sirianni offense in terms of ability. Like, you know, like a Zach Pascal type receiver,
right?
A Zacchaeus type receiver that they're going to look at and say, hey, do you see he's available? Let's try to get him.
It makes sense. All right, let's run through it here offensively, okay? No surprises here at quarterback. It's Hurts, Mariota, and Tanner McKee. It doesn't mean they can't bring back Book or somebody like that, I guess, on the practice squad. But that's it was obvious where this was headed. McKee just completely, you know, outplayed Ian Book to the point where people wanted him as the backup.
Yep.
All right. So running back, actually, it was like this is chalk again here, right? DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. The receivers, this is where you're right, Derek. I mean, it is a little bit thin here, right? I mean, so you go A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Olamide Zacchaeus. I mean, that's not shocking. You're in that generally that 4 or 5 range, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right. So that's why I say at the very minimum, they're going to add another one.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to keep Ward on the practice squad as their insurance policy and try to add another one.
Right.
You know, plain and simple.
Yep.
You know,
yeah,
and I don't blame. And who knows? It might be another receiver who has return capabilities as well.
Yeah.
For the life of me, that's the one area that always perplexes me about this team. When you look at so many teams that have return specialists, how this team has not found one over the last couple of years.
It's an issue like that. That's a blind spot. It is. So if you didn't hear earlier, they're bringing back Covey, Devin Allen to the practice squad as of right now. Who else did we hear? Covey, Devin Allen. Oh, Greg Ward.
Yeah, Ward, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's what we're hearing right now. All right. Just continue here. Offensive line. Mailata, Dickerson, Kelsey, Juergens, Lane Johnson. There's your starters. They'll be backed up by Driscoll, Opeta, Steen, Fred Johnson.
Yep.
All right. You know, again, there's no surprise there. You have versatility with Driscoll, Opeta, you know, can move a little bit here. Fred Johnson, they signed to a 2-year deal. That was obvious that he was coming back. Roderick Johnson went to the injured reserve.
Yep.
So he was out of play there. So that's what you're looking at. Oh, tight end. I skipped over tight end. Dallas Goedert, Stoll. Right now, you know, you would think either Stoll or Calcaterra, someone is going to pay for the Albert O trade. Hard to say which.
That's a tough one.
You know, one brings catching ability down the field.
Better blocker.
One's a better blocker. Yeah.
That remains to be seen which one. I don't see them going into the season with 4 tight ends on the roster.
No, they will not. Someone's going to a practice squad.
You know, so Which one is it? Which one do they value more? If it was me, I think Calcaterra a little bit more. I think they like his pass catching ability enough to where that they are okay with his inconsistent blocking ability, more so than Stoll being a better blocker than catcher.
Okay.
That's the way I see it. Yeah.
All right. All right. Beyond that, let's go over to the defensive side of this thing, Derek. We'll start on the edge. Brandon Graham.
Yep.
Jalen Carter, one of your tackles. Fletcher Cox, one of your tackles. Josh Sweat on the other end. We know Hassan Reddick is technically a strong side linebacker, but an edge guy. That much we do know. Beyond that, Derek Barnett not traded, so he will be here. That's for sure. Your interior guys, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, will be back. Your linebacking crew is the Kobe Dean as well. And look, this is where it got interesting. We weren't sure exactly who was going to be on the team and who wasn't going to be on the team, but Kobe Dean certainly back, and rightfully so. Zach Cunningham, who they picked up as camp began, and Christian Ellis. These are the guys that are back there. They've got to add another linebacker. There's no depth there. You got to add another linebacker somewhere. Yeah, you definitely think Cantavius Street makes the team as well as Moro Ojomo. So they're on the team also. Your corners. Excuse me. James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Avante Maddox, and where it got interesting was Eli Ricks makes the team, which we were all thinking that's probably where this thing was going to go, but he makes it nonetheless. Mario Goodrich makes the team. Josh Jobe makes the team. Keely Ringo makes the team.
I'm really surprised he kept 7 cornerbacks.
7 corners, right?
Yeah.
Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, Terrell Edmonds, and Justin Evans are your safeties.
I like the young kid, obviously Brown and Evans. I love their hustle. They stick their nose in there, make a tackle. They're going to work on, from what I'm told, you just have to work on harnessing Sidney Brown's overzealous energy sometimes to where he could overrun plays or miss tackles because he's such a heat-seeking missile. Once they refine that dude's going to be fine. He's going to have a good long career for himself in the National Football League.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about with him, Derek, is staying healthy. I don't worry about anything else with him because he's not the biggest guy in the world and he's throwing his body around a lot. But I feel like he's going to be a difference maker. He's going to be an old school, like, we got to know where this dude is kind of guy, the way he flies around. He
reminds me a lot of Sheldon Brown. Sheldon Brown wasn't the biggest corner out there, but Sheldon Brown would hit. Sheldon Brown stuck his nose, and Sheldon Brown, was hurt a number of times because, he was reckless with his body. And I hope that's not going to be the case with Sidney Brown. When he's out there, once he establishes his first initial hit, he's the kind of player the receivers are going to be looking at, well, okay, where's this dude?
Yeah, exactly.
He's the kind of guy that makes receivers look around and see where he is on the field at any given moment.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. He's going to be fun to watch. He's one of those guys, man. Yep. Like the fans, they're in heavy like with him. They're going to love this guy. He's the type of dude that you're going to see Sidney Brown jerseys, around the link. That's for sure. And then, of course, we know Jake Elliott. Here's the only thing, and all joking aside with Sippos was a good holder, and it made Elliott comfortable.
Yes.
It's not the end of the world, but it's a little thing to point out here that whoever else comes in.
Kickers will always tell you that's a big comfort zone with them. Yeah. Once they get a holder, to put that ball down a certain way all the time so they don't have to focus on where the laces are on the ball. That's huge. Now, whoever they're going to bring in, you got to bring him in sooner rather than later to decide on who he is, because he's going to be that guy who's going to be Jake Elliott's comfort zone when it comes to focus, planting the foot, and just swinging that leg.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, like you just said, we talked about with Jeff Kerr, that sooner rather than later, they're going to decide on who that next punter is.
Yes. All right. Let's get a timeout. So we're going to do 2 things here, Derek, when we come back. A little combo platter, like we like to say. Ben Simmons.
Bravo Pizza.
Ben Simmons had some interesting things to say regarding Philadelphia. We will dig into that. And also, I want I want us, you and I are going to break down the 5 most dangerous teams in the NFL, like the most scary teams
Outside of the Eagles.
Outside of the Eagles, the teams
Yep.
that scare you. All right, we'll do that. We got our full-blown NFL segment at 2:00. A bunch of other things to get to, so don't go anywhere. He's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Pro Action Restoration is the place you go to if your home, your business, a property you own goes through the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, mold damage, you name it. You're not equipped to handle that. Nobody is. So you reach out to Pro Action Restoration because they're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. That means whenever this goes down, they're there to help you. I've gone through it. It was on a Saturday, and the crew got right out there. They were professional. They fixed the problem. The price was right. Could not have been a better experience. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, fully insured, serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. They will work in conjunction with your insurance company also. Again, if it's water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's Pro Action Restoration.